We are counting down 10 anime villains whose darkest speeches, manifestos, and dying words exposed truths their heroes could not face. From war orphans who diagnosed cycles of hatred that entire nations ignored, to god-complex killers who actually made the world measurably safer, to architects of false utopias that still haunt philosophical debate, every entry on this list forced us to confront an uncomfortable question. What happens when the villain is right, but their remedy is unforgivable? The answer gets more unsettling with every rank. Let us begin with number 10, and a rain-soaked village that never stopped grieving.
In the 10th place, Pain stands alone in the ruins of Konoha, rain falling over a crater where a village once thrived. His voice, calm but hollow, delivers the infamous lines from episode 165. Feel pain, accept pain, and know pain. Those who do not know pain will never understand true peace. This world shall know pain. Born an orphan in war-torn Omegakure, Nagato watched every bond he cherished dissolve in violence. That trauma became the lens through which he saw the shinobi world, a cycle of hatred that bred only retaliation and loss. Pain's diagnosis cuts deeper than any jutsu. In a society built on revenge, peace is a lie told between battles. The evidence is impossible to ignore. With a single Shinra Tensei, Pain wipes out nearly 90% of Konoha's civilian population, an act of destruction so total that the village's heart simply stops beating. The crater left behind isn't just physical, it is a wound that exposes the emptiness at the core of ninja society. Even Naruto, the hero who opposes him, cannot dismiss the truth in Pain's words. In episode 175, Naruto quietly admits, "You are the savior of this world. I believe you can." A rare moment of acknowledgement that the world's suffering is real and that its cycle of vengeance cannot be ignored. Pain's philosophy, rooted in consequentialism, forces everyone to confront the cost of ignoring suffering. Masashi Kishimoto, the series creator, once confessed that writing Pain was the hardest, philosophically, because both Pain and Naruto are right in their own ways. Yet, the price of Pain's revelation is staggering. The near total annihilation of a village is not a solution, it is a warning. Diagnosing the disease does not excuse the cure. Pain's truth lingers, unresolved, a shadow over every attempt at peace that follows.
Number 9. Eren Yeager stands on the precipice of a world that has always seen his people as monsters. In Season 4, Episode 20, his voice is cold, almost resigned, as he asks, "If we kill them all, will we finally be free?" For generations, the Eldians of Paradise have lived behind walls, demonized by the world, targeted for extermination or exploitation. Every peace talk ends in betrayal. Every promise of coexistence is drowned by the roar of Marleyan guns. Eren's answer to this endless persecution is the Rumbling, a cataclysm that unleashes countless colossal titans to flatten the world beyond the island. The logic is as brutal as it is simple. If the world will never let Paradis live, then Eren will erase the world's ability to threaten them. The scale of the Rumbling is almost beyond comprehension. Canon sources in manga, chapter 139, confirm that roughly 80% of humanity is wiped out in a matter of days. Cities vanish under the Titan's feet. Borders and nations become meaningless, and the old power structures are swept away in a tide of destruction. Eren's conviction is unwavering. He believes only total annihilation of his enemies can secure freedom for his people. Yet beneath the violence lies a diagnosis that cannot be dismissed. The world's hatred of Eldians is real, unyielding, and systemic. Eren's solution is monstrous, but the oppression he faces is undeniable. His path is a tragedy on a global scale, one that forces every survivor to question whether survival can ever justify becoming the monster the world fears. Number 8. Zeke Yeager's vision for Eldia is chilling in its calculation. In his own words from chapter 138, the true salvation of Eldia is not to fight, but to cease existing. Unlike the thunder of the rumbling, Zeke's plan is quiet. No walls falling, no armies marching, just the slow, irreversible end of a people through sterilization. His logic is brutally simple. If no Eldian children are born, then no one can inherit the curse of the Titans. No more monsters, no more victims, no more war. To Zeke, this is mercy, a final answer to a world that will never accept his kind. The proof of his resolve lies in the shadows of Ragako Village. Season 2 reveals the aftermath, every resident transformed into a mindless titan, their humanity stolen by a fog laced with Zeke's spinal fluid. The method is clinical, almost scientific. Inhaling the gas is enough. There is no escape, no negotiation, just a demonstration of the power he wields and the inevitability of his plan. Zeke's approach is deterministic utilitarianism taken to its coldest extreme. Sacrifice the future of his own people to end their suffering and the world's fear. Yet the horror of Zeke's solution lingers. To erase an entire lineage, not with violence, but with the absence of life, is a violation of the most basic human right. His diagnosis of unending oppression is accurate, but his cure is a slow extinction. In the end, Zeke's mercy is indistinguishable from annihilation, a verdict that haunts every conversation about the cost of peace. Number 7. Stain's crusade slices through the heart of hero society with a clarity that still unsettles. In Season 2's Hosu arc, Stain stands over a fallen pro-hero and declares, "A hero who only seeks applause is a fraud. True heroes are forged through sacrifice. I will purge the world of those who hide behind false ideals." His blade is not just for flesh, but for the brand-driven world that has turned heroism into a business. Billboards, sponsorships, and staged rescues are the trappings of a society where being a hero is a career, not a calling. Stain's targets are carefully chosen. He spares those who embody selfless courage, heroes who risk everything without thought of reward. All might, above all, earns his respect. But the majority, he claims, are imposters, propped up by fame and profit. The evidence is everywhere, in PR campaigns, in the scramble for internships, in the way the public cheers for names, not deeds. Stain's attacks ignite a national debate, forcing both heroes and the public to confront uncomfortable truths. Manga, Chapter 104. And the anime's depiction of hero sponsorships drive home his point. When profit becomes the motive, justice is compromised. The aftermath of Stain's manifesto is impossible to ignore. His words ripple through society, leading to reforms in hero internships and a new scrutiny on what it means to serve. Stain's diagnosis is righteous, his warning prophetic. Yet his solution, ideological murder, remains unforgivable. He is both a mirror and a wound, reflecting a system's rot while carving a path of violence. Stain's legacy is not in the bodies he leaves behind, but in the uneasy questions he forces the world to ask about the price of heroism. Number 6. Meruem enters the world of Hunter x Hunter as the embodiment of supremacy, a king bred for conquest, convinced that power alone determines worth. In the early days of the Chimera Ant invasion, his rule is absolute and merciless. Nearly 500,000 lives, civilians and soldiers alike, are lost as his army sweeps across the Republic of East Gorteau, leaving entire cities silent. The death toll, drawn from manga and fan-compiled calculations, stands at approximately 491,500. For Meruem, this is not tragedy, but natural order. He dismisses humans as little more than livestock, meant to be culled or consumed by the strong. Yet, as the arc unfolds, something remarkable happens. In episode 136, seated across a battered wooden board, Meruem faces Komugi, a blind, frail girl who defeats him over and over at Gunji, a game of strategy and intuition. Each loss chips away at his certainty. The king who once demanded total obedience finds himself yearning for connection, for meaning beyond domination. In his final moments, poisoned and dying, Meruem weeps, not for himself, but for Komugi, the only human who treated him as an equal. He confesses, "I was born to judge, but I have learned that the only true fairness lies in the equality of death." Meruem's evolution is a critique of power without purpose. He exposes the emptiness at the heart of might for its own sake, revealing that strength untempered by empathy leads only to isolation and ruin. His journey from tyrant to seeker of meaning stands as a haunting reminder. True greatness demands more than victory. It requires understanding, humility, and the courage to change.
Number 5. Askeladd's world is one where mercy is a luxury and survival demands calculation. In Vinland Saga's first season, his strategy comes into sharp focus during the aftermath of the London raid. Askeladd spares no illusions about his role. He orchestrates massacres, razes villages, and slays rivals, all to shield Prince Canute from the same fate that claimed countless innocents. In episode 12, he confesses to Thorfinn, saying the sword is a tool. Its purpose is not to kill for pleasure, but to carve the path we choose. For Askeladd, every brutal act is a move in a larger game, one that aims to place Canute, a prince with the potential for peace, on the throne of Denmark. The evidence of his realism is written in blood. The London raid alone leaves an entire village wiped out, with only a single survivor. Hundreds die as Askeladd's band carves a path through England, their losses a grim currency for what he sees as a greater good. His manipulation of Danish and English politics is ruthless, but always with an eye on the future. A Christian king who might end the endless cycle of Viking conquest and bring welfare reforms to a fractured land. The cost is staggering, but Askeladd's vision is clear. Ideals cannot survive in a world ruled by swords unless someone is willing to bear the stain of necessary evil. Makoto Yukimura, the series creator, has described Askeladd's arc as a meditation on the burden of leadership and the moral gray of historical survival. Askeladd exposes the truth that peace often rests on the shoulders of those willing to do what others cannot. His correctness lies not in the righteousness of his actions, but in his unflinching diagnosis. A better world demands sacrifices the innocent can never make. The shadow he casts is long, and the questions he raises about power, violence, and the cost of peace linger long after his blade is laid to rest. Lelouch v. Britannia engineers a revolution that targets not only Britannia's regime, but the entire machinery of imperial domination. After toppling the empire from within, he claims the throne and deliberately becomes the world's most reviled dictator. His infamous Zero Requiem plan is a masterstroke of utilitarian sacrifice. Lelouch unites a fractured world by making himself the common enemy, forcing nations to rally together through shared hatred. The cost is immense. The Black Rebellion alone leaves thousands dead, and Britannia's legacy of oppression and conquest is laid bare. Lelouch's final speech, delivered as he tightens his grip on power, exposes the rot at the heart of a society built on violence and hierarchy. He accepts the role of villain, orchestrating his own assassination at the hands of Suzaku to break the endless cycle of revenge and subjugation. For a brief moment, his death brings peace and catharsis, but the aftermath is fraught with uncertainty. The world he leaves behind is shaped by the trauma of his tyranny and the memory of his sacrifice. Interviews with the series creators reveal Lelouch as a meditation on the ethics of power, one man's willingness to bear universal hatred for the possibility of a better world. His legacy remains a warning. Peace achieved through force is always fragile, and the price of justice can be unbearably high. Coming to the top 3, Light Yagami's vision for justice burns with a clarity that is both seductive and terrifying. In episode 7, his voice rings out, "I am justice. The world is rotten, and I will cleanse it of its filth. Those who oppose me are merely obstacles that must be erased for a brighter tomorrow." With the Death Note in hand, Light takes on the mantle of Kira, wielding absolute power to eliminate anyone he deems unworthy. The results are staggering.
Within months, the global crime rate plummets by an estimated 70%. News broadcasts announce the sudden drop in violent offenses, and the world's governments are thrown into chaos, desperate to understand and contain the invisible hand reshaping society. For a time, Kira is seen by many as a savior. Ordinary people sleep easier, convinced that a higher power is watching and punishing every act of evil. But the utopia Light creates comes at a catastrophic cost. As his paranoia grows, the circle of victims widens. Not just murderers, but investigators, critics, and even those close to him fall to the pen's deadly stroke. The line between justice and tyranny blurs until it vanishes entirely. The world becomes a surveillance state, ruled by fear, where dissent is equated with guilt and mercy is a relic of the past. Light's diagnosis of a corrupt, decaying world is hard to dismiss. The statistics speak for themselves. Crime nearly vanishes, and for a fleeting moment, order reigns. Yet the price is the destruction of due process, the erosion of trust, and the rise of a new kind of totalitarianism, one that hides behind the mask of justice. Light. Yagami's story is a warning. The dream of a perfect world enforced by absolute power will always become a nightmare. The question lingers, can the ends ever justify the means when the means consume the soul? Number 2. Shogo Makishima stands in the sterile glow of a world obsessed with order, his words slicing through the silence of Psycho Pass. Season 1, Episode 9. Everyone is empty. People no longer have need of others. You can always find a spare for any replacement. Any relationship can be replaced. Makishima is not the typical villain with dreams of conquest or chaos. Instead, he is the ghost in the machine, a living rejection of the Sibyl system's promise of perfect justice. In a society where an algorithm dictates morality, career, even the right to live, Makishima's very existence is an act of rebellion. Sibyl cannot judge him. His psychopath remains clear, even as he orchestrates murders that expose the system's blind spots. Each crime is a calculated demonstration. A woman is murdered on live television. A student becomes a killer because the system cannot see intent, only stress. These staged atrocities are not random. They are Makishima's proof that a world governed by numbers is a world that has lost its soul. Think tank papers and real-world debates on AI policing often cite psychopaths as a warning. The Sibyl system, designed to eliminate crime before it happens, instead breeds apathy and dependency, erasing all sense of personal responsibility. Makishima's manifesto resonates in a time when predictive algorithms decide everything from parole to employment. He exposes the danger of surrendering freedom for peace, of letting machines define humanity. His diagnosis is chillingly precise. A society that outsources its conscience will eventually forget how to be human. Makishima's methods, murder, manipulation, and psychological terror, are indefensible. But his indictment of a technocratic utopia is impossible to ignore. In the end, he is not a monster, but a mirror, forcing the world to confront the cost of trading liberty for the illusion of safety.
And finally, in first place, Madara Uchiha stands as the architect of the most haunting diagnosis in anime villainy, a world so poisoned by hatred that only illusion can bring peace. In the pages of manga chapter 560, his words ring out. The world is built upon a foundation of deception. Only by sharing the eye of reality can we free humanity from the endless cycle of hatred. I will bind them all under a single vision. Madara's Moon's Eye plan is not a mere conquest or act of vengeance. It is a total solution, one that seeks to end all suffering by stripping away the very freedom that makes suffering possible. Through the infinite Tsukuyomi, he casts a genjutsu over the entire world, plunging every living being into an eternal dream where pain, conflict, and regret are erased. In this vision, there are no wars, no betrayals, no broken promises, only an unbroken artificial serenity. But the cost is staggering. Free will vanishes. Every action becomes meaningless, every relationship a phantom.
every hope and fear dissolved into a perfect, unchanging fantasy. The horror is not in bloodshed, but in the quiet suffocation of agency itself. Madara's argument is chilling not because it is false, but because it is so nearly true. Decades of war have proven that no treaty, no hero, no ideology can break the cycle of hatred. Where Pain diagnosed the disease, Madara proposes a cure so absolute it terrifies even his enemies. Peace without consequence. Harmony without freedom. The Fourth Ninja War stands as his final experiment. A world on the brink, desperate enough to consider the price of his offer. Kishimoto, the creator, once described Madara as the culmination of all the series' questions about peace, a villain whose logic is so persuasive that even the bravest shinobi hesitate. The infinite Tsukuyomi is the mirror held up to humanity's failure, a final, inescapable question. Is a world without pain worth living in, if it means surrendering everything that makes us human? Madara's legacy is the shadow of that question, stretching across every attempt at peace that follows. Across all 10 stories, one pattern endures. The truest villains are those who hold a mirror to a broken world and force us to confront what we'd rather deny. Their warnings echo because the systems they challenge remain flawed. In anime and in life, being right often means standing alone. So, which truth would you fight for? And is justice worth becoming the villain? Let us know where you stand in the comments.